If they look urban, 45-minute wait minimum. Sit them by the kitchen.
What if we have open tables?
I don't care. Make them wait, or they'll keep coming back.
This surveillance footage was captured on March 15, 2024, at 7:47 p.m. What you're about to see is a conversation that lasted just 15 seconds. But those 15 seconds would spark a viral firestorm that destroyed 2 careers, shut down a beloved restaurant, and ripped apart an entire community. Before we dive in, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button because trust me, you don't want to miss stories like this. The woman you see on the left is 42-year-old Patricia Morrison, general manager of the Sterling Oak, a high-end steakhouse in the historic downtown district. The young man on the right is 19-year-old Marcus Chen, a college freshman who'd been working as a host for exactly 3 weeks. What happens next will leave you speechless. Let me take you back to how this all started. The Sterling Oak wasn't just any restaurant. For 27 years, it had been the place to celebrate anniversaries, close business deals, and host rehearsal dinners. White tablecloths, $1.85 steaks, a wine list that went on for 14 pages. The kind of place where you needed reservations 2 weeks in advance. It sat on the corner of Main Street and Fifth Avenue, right in the heart of the historic downtown district. Red brick exterior, brass fixtures, valet parking out front. Inside, dark wood paneling, leather booths, soft jazz playing through hidden speakers. The type of establishment where businessmen closed million-dollar deals over dry-aged ribeyes and $300 bottles of wine. Patricia Morrison had worked there for 11 years. Started as a server back in 2013, worked her way up to manager in 2018, knew every regular customer by name. She could remember drink orders, favorite tables, dietary restrictions. By all accounts, she ran a tight ship. The restaurant had a 4.7-star rating on every review platform. Tables turned on time. Food came out hot. The kitchen staff respected her. Servers followed her lead. Complaints were rare. Tips were good. Employee turnover was low. From the outside, everything looked perfect. But there was something else going on. Something that dozens of customers had noticed over the years, but could never quite prove. Something whispered about in online review comments that got deleted. Something discussed in private Facebook groups for the Black and Hispanic communities in town. Quick question for you watching. Have you ever felt unwelcome at a restaurant or business for no clear reason? Have you ever wondered if you were being treated differently because of how you looked? Type yes or no in the comments because I want to hear from you. Starting in late 2023, a pattern began to emerge more clearly. Black customers, Hispanic customers, anyone who didn't fit a certain profile would show up with confirmed reservations, confirmation emails printed out or saved on their phones, only to be told there was a problem with the booking. The system must have glitched. The reservation didn't go through. Sorry for the confusion. Or they'd be seated immediately without any fuss. But somehow, mysteriously, they always ended up at table 14, right next to the swinging kitchen doors, where the noise was constant, where waiters rushed past carrying hot plates, where the temperature was freezing because of the AC vent overhead, where the smell of dish soap drifted out from the back. One couple, James and Angela Rodriguez, celebrated their 10th wedding anniversary there in January of 2024. They'd saved up for months. Angela bought a new dress. James wore his best suit. They had a 7:30 p.m. reservation, booked 3 weeks in advance, confirmed twice. When they arrived dressed in their finest, excited and happy, Patricia greeted them at the host stand. She looked at her computer screen, frowned, clicked around with her mouse, and said, "I'm so sorry, but we're running about 45 minutes behind tonight. We had a large party run over. Would you mind waiting at the bar?" James looked past her shoulder. He could see at least 4 empty tables in the main dining room. He pointed them out politely. Patricia smiled tightly and said, "Those are reserved for parties arriving at 8:00. The Rodriguez couple waited. They ordered drinks at the bar. They watched as white couples who arrived after them were seated immediately at those supposedly reserved tables. By the time James and Angela were finally seated at 8:40, more than an hour after their reservation time, most of the menu items they wanted were sold out. The kitchen had run out of the sea base. The lamb special was gone. Their evening was ruined. Another incident. Malik Johnson, a local attorney with his own practice downtown, took his mother there for her 68th birthday in February. Malik's mother had been a school teacher for 40 years, retired with honors, respected in the community. This was supposed to be a special night. They arrived on time for their 6:30 reservation. They were seated immediately, but at table 14, right next to the kitchen. Malik's mother tried to make the best of it, but the noise made conversation difficult. When Malik politely asked their server if they could move to one of several empty tables by the window, the server said she'd ask the manager. Patricia came over, all smiles and apologies, and claimed those tables were all reserved, even though they remained empty the entire meal. Malik and his mother ate quickly and left. When Malik posted a measured, professional review online mentioning the seating issue, the review was flagged and removed within 24 hours. A Black family with 3 young children told their reservation was lost, even though they had a confirmation email with a reservation number. Made to wait 50 minutes while their kids got restless and hungry. Finally seated at, you guessed it, table 14. An interracial couple on a first date. Seated immediately, but at the worst table in the house, right under a bright light that made the romantic atmosphere impossible. A group of Hispanic businesswomen celebrating a promotion told the reservation system was down and they'd have to wait, even though other parties arriving at the same time were checked in without any issues. But nobody could prove anything. It was always plausible deniability, always just bad luck or unfortunate timing, always a computer glitch or an unexpected rush, always a reasonable explanation that couldn't quite be challenged without sounding paranoid or difficult. That's how discrimination works in 2024. It's not signs on the door. It's not explicit exclusion. It's just a series of small inconveniences and subtle slights that add up to the message, you're not really welcome here. Until Marcus Chen started working there. And until March 15, 2024, at exactly 7:47 p.m., when Patricia Morrison said the quiet part out loud, and a security camera captured every word. Marcus was 19 years old, a sophomore studying business administration at the local university. He'd worked retail jobs before, spent a summer at Target, worked Black Friday at Best Buy, but this was his first restaurant job. He was excited about it. The Sterling Oak paid well, $15 an hour plus a share of the tip pool, which often added another $50 or $60 per shift. He needed the money for tuition. His parents helped where they could, but Marcus was determined to pay his own way as much as possible. He'd heard good things about the restaurant. Nice atmosphere, professional management, good training, a place you could actually learn something about hospitality and customer service. He applied in late February, filled out the online application, came in for an interview with Patricia and the assistant manager. The interview went well. Patricia asked standard questions. Why do you want to work here? What's your availability? Have you worked in customer service before? Marcus was polite, well-spoken, dressed appropriately. Patricia hired him on the spot. He started the first week of March. His first 2 weeks were fine, unremarkable even. Marcus showed up early for every shift, sometimes 15 or 20 minutes before he was scheduled, just to show he was serious. He memorized the menu during his breaks, learned to pronounce the French wine names correctly, practiced saying Chateauneuf du Pape until he could say it smoothly. He learned the table numbering system, figured out which sections belonged to which servers, understood how the reservation software worked. Patricia seemed professional during his training, if a bit cold and distant. She showed him how to greet guests at the door, how to check them in, how to estimate wait times, how to handle walk-ins during busy periods. Standard stuff, nothing unusual. But on Friday, March 15th, something changed. Something shifted. Something happened that Marcus would never forget. It was Marcus's third Friday night shift, one of the busiest nights of the week. The restaurant was fully booked from 6 p.m. until close at 10 p.m. Nearly every table was reserved. Walk-ins would be nearly impossible to accommodate. Marcus arrived at 5:30 to help the day shift host finish setting up the podium, printing out the reservation list, making sure the menus were stacked neatly, checking that the pens worked. He was in a good mood. It was payday. He'd done well his first few weeks. He felt like he was getting the hang of the job. At around 5:45, Patricia arrived for her evening shift. She was always there on Friday nights, the most profitable night of the week. She liked to oversee everything personally, make sure the kitchen was running smoothly, make sure the servers were on point, make sure the money was flowing. She walked through the dining room, straightened a few table settings, adjusted the lighting, checked the temperature. Everything had to be perfect. Then, at approximately 7:47 p.m., the dinner rush already in full swing, the dining room about 70% full, with more reservations arriving every few minutes. Patricia pulled Marcus aside to the host stand. This is where the security camera captured everything. The camera that would change everything. The camera that nobody thought about until it was too late. The timestamp reads 1947:32 in the bottom right corner of the frame. That's 7:47 p.m. and 32 seconds. The date stamp shows 03/15/2024. The camera is mounted high on the wall behind the bar, a standard wide-angle security lens, black and white image quality, slightly grainy but perfectly clear. It captures the entire host stand area and about half the dining room behind it. You can see Patricia leaning over the reservation book. Marcus is standing next to her, pen in hand, listening carefully like a good employee should. The dining room behind them is already filling up with well-dressed customers. Men in suits, women in cocktail dresses. The Friday night crowd, the money crowd. Here's exactly what was said, word for word, captured on audio that's surprisingly crystal clear for a security camera system. Patricia leans in close to Marcus, her voice low but perfectly audible on the recording. She says, "Okay, Marcus, I need to explain something important about how we handle walk-ins and reservations tonight." Marcus nods, ready to learn. He's still new. He wants to do things right. He's paying attention. Patricia continues, pointing down at the reservation book with her pen. "If they look urban, and you know what I mean by that, you tell them 45-minute wait minimum, even if we have open tables." There's a pause, just a second or two, but you can see Marcus's face change in that moment. His eyebrows go up. His head tilts slightly. He looks confused. Maybe he didn't hear her right. Maybe he misunderstood. He asks, his voice uncertain, What if we have open tables right there?" He gestures toward the dining room where several tables are clearly visible and empty. Patricia doesn't hesitate. She doesn't stutter. She doesn't backtrack. She looks him straight in the eye, her expression completely serious, and says, "You give them table 14 or tell them 45 minutes. Make them wait or they'll keep coming back." On the surveillance footage, you can see Marcus freeze. His whole body goes still. His mouth is slightly open. He's processing what he just heard. His brain is trying to reconcile the professional training he received with this new, explicit instruction. Patricia holds his gaze for another few seconds, making sure the message has landed, making sure he understands this is not a suggestion, but an order. Then she straightens up, smooths her blazer, and walks away to greet an arriving couple with a bright smile and warm welcome. Marcus stands there alone at the podium, looking down at the reservation book. The timestamp reads 1947:47. 15 seconds. That's all it took. 15 seconds to give an illegal order. 15 seconds to explicitly instruct racial discrimination. 15 seconds that would destroy careers, close a business, and spark a community-wide reckoning. But Marcus wasn't just shocked. He wasn't just confused or uncomfortable. He was also smart. He immediately recognized what had just happened. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't vague or ambiguous. This wasn't open to interpretation. This was explicit, textbook, illegal discrimination. And he'd been given a direct order to participate in it. To be complicit. To become part of the problem. Let me ask you something. What would you have done in that moment? You're 19 years old. You need this job to pay for college. You just started 3 weeks ago. Your manager, your boss, the person who hired you and can fire you, just gave you a direct order. Would you have walked out right then and there? Would you have confronted her in the middle of the dinner rush? Would you have stayed quiet to keep your paycheck? Would you have tried to pretend you didn't hear her? Comment below, because I genuinely want to know what you would have done. Marcus finished his shift that night. He smiled at customers. He checked people in. He showed them to their tables. But inside, his mind was racing. His stomach was in knots. Every time a Black family or Hispanic couple walked through the door, he felt sick. He seated them normally, treated them with respect, didn't follow Patricia's instructions, but he knew that wouldn't last. Sooner or later, Patricia would notice. Sooner or later, she'd pull him aside again. Sooner or later, he'd be forced to make a choice. When his shift ended at 10 p.m., Marcus clocked out like normal, said goodnight to the kitchen staff, walked through the dark parking lot to his car, and sat there in the driver's seat for 20 minutes with the engine off. Just sitting, just thinking, just trying to figure out what to do. He thought about quitting, just sending a text tomorrow saying he wouldn't be coming back. No explanation needed. Just walk away. He thought about confronting Patricia directly, asking her what she meant, giving her a chance to clarify or walk it back. He thought about reporting her to the owner, but that seemed risky. What if the owner knew? What if this was company policy from the top down? What if they just fired him for causing trouble? But he also thought about something else. He'd heard stories about workplace discrimination, about people who tried to report bad behavior internally and ended up fired or blacklisted or labeled as troublemakers. He'd read articles about whistleblowers who lost their jobs and couldn't find new ones. He knew that in most cases, it was just one person's word against another's. He says, she says, no proof, no evidence, just credibility wars that employees usually lose. And then he remembered something. The security cameras. Every inch of that restaurant was covered. The dining room, the bar, the host stand, the kitchen, the parking lot, everything. For insurance purposes, for liability protection, for loss prevention, the cameras ran 24/7, recording everything on a digital server that kept footage for 30 days before automatically overriding it, including that conversation at 7:47 p.m. The next morning, Saturday, March 16th, Marcus didn't sleep much, maybe 3 hours. He kept replaying the conversation in his head. Patricia's exact words, her tone, her body language, the way she made sure he understood. By 9 a.m., he'd made his decision. He opened his laptop, logged into his personal email, and started typing. The email was addressed to David Sterling, the restaurant's owner. David was the grandson of the original founder, a man in his mid-50s who'd grown up in the business, worked every position from dishwasher to manager before inheriting ownership from his father. David didn't work day-to-day operations anymore. He had Patricia and other managers for that, but he was still involved in major decisions, and his email address was listed on the company website. Marcus's email was professional, factual, and direct. The subject line read, urgent, discrimination, training in the body of the email. Marcus detailed exactly what Patricia had told him. He included the date, March 15th, the time, approximately 7:47 p.m., the location, the host stand, the exact words she used. He explained that he was a new employee, that this was only his 3rd week, and that he was uncomfortable with the instruction he'd been given. He wrote, I cannot and will not discriminate against customers based on their appearance or race. I'm requesting that you review the security camera footage from last night, March 15th, at approximately 7:47 p.m., which I believe will show our conversation at the host stand. If this instruction reflects company policy, I respectfully resign effective immediately. If it does not reflect company policy, I believe this matter requires your immediate attention. He read it over 3 times, made sure the tone was respectful but firm, made sure the facts were accurate, made sure he'd covered everything. Then, at 9:18 a.m. on Saturday morning, he hit send. David Sterling opened that email at 10:23 a.m. while having coffee with his wife at their kitchen table. He'd slept in a bit, enjoying a rare Saturday morning at home. He was scrolling through emails on his phone, mostly routine stuff, when he saw Marcus's message. The subject line caught his attention immediately. Discrimination training. He opened it and started reading. By the second paragraph, his jaw was clenched. By the end, he was on his feet. His wife asked what was wrong. David just shook his head and said, I need to go to the restaurant. Now, by 10:45, David was at the Sterling Oak. The restaurant didn't open until 5 p.m. on Saturdays, so the building was empty except for a couple of prep cooks in the kitchen. David went straight to the security office, a small room in the back near the dry storage area, where all the camera feeds were monitored and recorded. He'd only been in there a handful of times, usually when there was a theft investigation or an insurance claim. He logged into the system, pulled up the archive for Friday, March 15th, and navigated to camera 3, the one covering the host stand. He scrolled to 7:45 p.m. and pressed play. At first, he saw normal restaurant activity. Customers being seated, servers moving around. Then Patricia appeared in frame, walking toward the host stand where Marcus was standing. David leaned closer to the monitor. He turned up the volume, He watched Patricia lean in. He heard her say, "If they look urban, and you know what I mean by that, you tell them 45-minute wait minimum." He heard Marcus ask about open tables. He heard Patricia's response, "Make them wait or they'll keep coming back." When the clip ended, David sat back in his chair. His hands were shaking. He felt sick. He watched the clip again, then a third time. The audio was crystal clear. There was no ambiguity. There was no room for misinterpretation. His general manager, of 11 years, someone he'd trusted completely, someone he'd promoted and given bonuses to, and praised publicly, had just explicitly instructed a teenage employee to engage in racial discrimination. David immediately pulled out his phone and called his lawyer, a man he'd known for 20 years, who handled all the restaurant's legal matters. The lawyer answered on the second ring. David said, "I need you to come to the restaurant right now. We have a serious problem within 45 minutes. The lawyer was there, watching the footage himself, taking notes, asking questions. The lawyer's advice was clear and immediate. You have to terminate her. Today. Right now. You have no choice. If you don't, and this comes out, you're liable for everything. Civil rights violations, hostile work environment, discrimination, you name it." She's a manager acting in her official capacity, giving explicit discriminatory instructions. The company is on the hook. Your only move here is immediate termination and full cooperation with any investigation. David nodded. He understood, but understanding didn't make it any easier. Patricia had been there for 11 years. She had a family. She had bills, but she'd also broken the law on camera while representing his business. At 12:30 p.m. on Saturday afternoon, David called Patricia. He kept his voice calm and said, "Patricia, I need you to come to the restaurant. There's something we need to discuss." Patricia sounded confused. It was her day off. She had plans. David insisted, "It's important. I need you here as soon as possible." Patricia arrived at 1:15 p.m., walking in through the back entrance like she always did when she wasn't on shift. She was dressed casually, jeans and a sweater, clearly annoyed at having her Saturday interrupted. When she saw David and his lawyer sitting in the small office, her expression shifted to concern. "What's going on?" she asked. David didn't waste time. He turned the computer monitor so she could see it, pulled up the footage, and pressed play. Patricia watched herself give that instruction to Marcus. Her face went pale. The room was silent, except for the audio from the video. When it ended, David said, "Patricia, you're fired. Effective immediately. This is wrongful termination of employment for cause. You'll receive your final paycheck within 72 hours, as required by law. I need your keys, your ID badge, and any company property you have. You need to leave now." Patricia's response is important here, because it reveals everything about her mindset. She didn't deny what she'd said. She didn't claim the audio was fake or taken out of context. Instead, she tried to defend it. She said, her voice rising, "David, you know how it is. You've been in this business your whole life. Certain types of customers complain more, tip less, take up tables longer, drive away your regulars. I was just trying to protect the bottom line. I was trying to maximize turnover and keep our good customers happy. This is just business." David's face hardened. He said, "No, this is racism. This is illegal. And you just said it out loud to a 19-year-old kid who was smart enough to report you. You're done. Get out." Patricia started arguing. She'd been there 11 years. She'd given everything to this restaurant. She had tenure. She had rights. She'd sue for wrongful termination. The lawyer, still sitting calmly, spoke up for the first time. He explained in a measured, professional tone that instructing employees to discriminate based on race violated Title Roman II of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, numerous state and local anti-discrimination statutes, and created liability for the company under federal law. Her termination was not only justified but legally required. The company could, in fact, be sued by customers if it failed to take immediate corrective action. If she chose to pursue legal action for wrongful termination, the video would be entered as evidence and she would lose. She might also face personal civil liability from affected customers. Patricia went quiet. She handed over her keys. She left her ID badge on the desk. She walked out of the Sterling Oak at 1:47 p.m. on Saturday, March 16th, less than 18 hours after giving that instruction to Marcus. Her 11-year career was over. But the story didn't end there, because David Sterling made another decision that day, one that would have massive consequences. He called Marcus that afternoon and explained what had happened. Patricia had been terminated. The restaurant did not tolerate discrimination. Marcus had done the right thing by reporting it. Then David asked Marcus a question. He asked permission to make what had happened public, to post a statement on social media, to be transparent about the incident. Marcus thought about it for a few minutes, then agreed. He said yes. On Sunday, March 17th, at 10 a.m., the Sterling Oak posted a statement on its Facebook page, Instagram account, and website. It read, "This weekend, we became aware that a member of our management team gave explicitly discriminatory instructions to a front-of-house employee. That instruction violated our core values, violated the law, and violated everything we stand for as a business. The employee who received that instruction immediately reported it to ownership. We reviewed security camera footage that confirmed the incident. The manager in question has been terminated effective immediately. We are conducting a full internal review of our policies and practices. We have retained a civil rights consultant to help ensure this never happens again. We apologize sincerely and unreservedly to any customer who may have experienced discrimination at our establishment. We are committed to serving everyone with dignity and respect." The post went viral within hours. It was shared hundreds of times by noon. Local food bloggers picked it up. Community Facebook groups started discussing it. By Sunday evening, local news outlets were running the story. By Monday morning, the security footage itself had been leaked to the media, though with Patricia's and Marcus's faces digitally blurred to protect their privacy. National outlets picked up the story by Tuesday. CNN, NBC, Fox News, everyone. The comments sections absolutely exploded. Thousands upon thousands of comments. Some people praised David for his swift action and transparency. Others said it was too little too late. And most importantly, hundreds of former customers came forward with their own stories. The floodgates opened. People who'd suspected discrimination but stayed quiet. People who'd experienced it but had no proof. People who'd been gaslit into thinking it was just bad luck. The Rodriguez couple, who'd waited 45 minutes on their anniversary, commented publicly, thanking Marcus for his courage and confirming their experience. Malik Johnson, the attorney who'd been seated near the restrooms with his mother, posted a long Facebook message detailing his experience and announcing he was considering legal action. A Black woman named Tamara shared that she'd been told there were no reservations available for her daughter's birthday dinner, only to see the same tables she'd requested given to white customers who walked in without reservations. Story after story after story. Patricia Morrison tried to defend herself. She posted a statement on her personal Facebook page that has since been deleted, but was screenshot and preserved all over the internet. She claimed she was being made a scapegoat for industry-wide practices that everyone knows about but nobody talks about, she said. She was just trying to protect the restaurant's atmosphere and ensure a quality experience for longtime customers. She claimed David Sterling had known about her seating practices and never objected before. The post was ratioed into oblivion. Hundreds of comments calling her racist, demanding accountability, celebrating her firing. Patricia lost everything quickly. Her professional reputation was destroyed. Other restaurants in the area issued public statements saying they would not hire her. She was asked to resign from the local restaurant association. Friends stopped returning her calls. Her LinkedIn profile went dark. According to people who knew her, she became a pariah overnight. But the legal consequences were just beginning. The local district attorney's office announced an investigation into whether the Sterling Oak could face charges under public accommodation laws. While the discrimination itself was primarily a civil matter, there were questions about whether the systematic nature of it rose to criminal liability. Ultimately, no criminal charges were filed, but the threat hung over everything. More significantly, the civil lawsuit started rolling in. Malik Johnson filed first, on behalf of himself and his mother, seeking damages for discrimination and emotional distress. The Rodriguez couple filed next. Then Tamara. Then a class action lawsuit was organized, representing dozens of customers who believed they'd been discriminated against over the years. The Sterling Oaks Insurance Company got involved. Depositions were scheduled. Discovery began. It became a legal nightmare. In October of 2024, the Sterling Oak reached a settlement with the plaintiffs. The exact terms were confidential, but court filings and news reports estimated the total payouts at over $200,000 once legal fees were included. David Sterling released a brief statement saying the settlement was appropriate and that he hoped it brought some measure of justice to those who'd been harmed. But the damage went far beyond money. Let's talk about what happened to everyone involved in the long term, because that's where this story gets really complicated. Marcus Chen became a local hero. News outlets interviewed him. He appeared on podcasts about workplace ethics and standing up to discrimination. A local civil rights organization gave him an award for courage. He was offered jobs at a dozen other restaurants, all at higher pay than the Sterling Oak. But Marcus decided to leave the restaurant industry entirely. He told a reporter, "I realized that night that I don't want to work in a system where what happened to me is even possible. I want to build something better." He's now focused full-time on his business degree. He's talked publicly about wanting to start his own company one day, maybe in tech or consulting, somewhere he can build a culture of real equality from the ground up. He's become an advocate for workplace transparency and employee protection laws. The Sterling Oak tried to stay open. David Sterling was determined. He brought in an entirely new management team. He implemented mandatory anti-bias training for all employees. He posted anti-discrimination policies at the host stand. He donated $50,000 to local civil rights organizations. He did everything he could to show the community that his restaurant had changed. But it wasn't enough. Reservations dropped by 60% almost immediately. Regular customers, even those who believed David had done the right thing, didn't want to be associated with the scandal. They went to other restaurants. New customers were hesitant to try a place with that reputation. Revenue collapsed. Staff had to be laid off. By September 2024, just 6 months after the incident, the Sterling Oak closed permanently after 27 years in business. The building sat empty for months before being leased to a new restaurant group that completely rebranded it. David Sterling released a statement saying, "We did the right thing by terminating the manager immediately and being transparent with the public, but we couldn't overcome the damage to our reputation. I have no regrets about how we handled the situation, but I deeply regret that it happened under my watch in the first place." Patricia Morrison's life changed dramatically and permanently. She couldn't find work in the restaurant industry anywhere in the state. Her name was too well known, too toxic. She tried applying to corporate chains in other cities, but the background checks always turned up the news articles. She ended up working retail for a while, but even that became difficult when coworkers recognized her. According to public records and social media activity, she moved to another state by summer 2024, possibly trying to start over somewhere her name wouldn't be immediately recognized. She has not spoken publicly about the incident since that initial Facebook post. No interviews. No apologies. Nothing. But the story had ripple effects far beyond these 3 individuals. After the footage went viral, restaurant industry groups across the country were forced to respond. The National Restaurant Association issued a statement condemning discrimination and urging members to review their practices. Several major chains, including ones with no connection to the incident, announced updated training programs explicitly addressing racial profiling and bias in seating and service. Some cities and states passed new ordinances requiring restaurants to post anti-discrimination policies visibly at host stands. It became a case study taught in hospitality management programs and business ethics courses at universities. And perhaps most significantly, employees started speaking up more. In the 6 months following the Sterling Oak incident, reports of discrimination in the service industry increased by 34% in that state alone, according to the state's Human Rights Commission. Not because discrimination increased, but because workers felt empowered to report it. Because they'd seen what happened when someone had the courage to come forward with proof. Because they knew they weren't alone. Let me ask you this, and I really want you to think about it. How many other restaurants, stores, businesses, and workplaces have similar policies that just haven't been caught on camera yet? How many managers have given the same instructions Patricia gave, but in places where there weren't security cameras or where employees stayed silent because they needed the paycheck or were afraid of retaliation? How many customers have experienced discrimination but had no way to prove it. No evidence, just that gut feeling that something wasn't right. That's the reality we're living in. Patricia Morrison wasn't an anomaly. She wasn't some uniquely evil person. She was just the one who got caught. She said the quiet part out loud in front of a camera. But this kind of thing happens all the time. In restaurants, in retail stores, in offices, in every industry, in ways both subtle and explicit. The only difference here is that there was proof. There was a recording. There was a witness willing to come forward. And that's why Marcus Chen's decision mattered so much. He could have stayed quiet. He could have nodded, done what he was told, collected his $15 an hour plus tips, and gone home. He could have convinced himself it wasn't his problem or that one person couldn't make a difference. But he didn't. He recognized that silence is complicity. He recognized that when you're given an illegal order, you have a moral obligation to refuse it. And he had the courage to report what he saw, even when it put his job and his financial security at risk. Patricia Morrison thought she could hide behind coded language and plausible deniability. She thought Urban was subtle enough. She thought seating people at bad tables and giving them long wait times was just business strategy. She thought she could discriminate quietly, and no one would be able to prove it. She was wrong. The camera caught every word. The new employee had a conscience. The truth came out. The Sterling Oaks closure is genuinely tragic for the employees who lost their jobs through no fault of their own. The servers, the cooks, the bartenders, the dishwashers who were just trying to make a living and had nothing to do with Patricia's decisions. It's tragic for David Sterling, who acted swiftly and appropriately, but still lost his family's 27-year legacy. Those are real consequences for real people, and they matter. But the closure also sends a message. There are consequences for discrimination, even when it's quiet and calculated, even when it's hidden behind professional smiles and reasonable-sounding excuses, even when it's systemic and long-standing. Eventually, the truth comes out. Eventually, someone speaks up. Eventually, there's a reckoning. If you've made it this far, thank you for watching. If this story made you think, if it made you angry, if it made you want to do better in your own life and work, hit that like button. Drop a comment with your thoughts. Have you ever witnessed something like this at a restaurant or business? What would you have done in Marcus's shoes? Would you have reported it? Would you have stayed quiet? I want to hear from you. And please subscribe if you haven't already. I cover stories like this one. Stories about justice and accountability, and what happens when everyday people stand up and do the right thing even when it's hard. Stories about how one person's courage can change everything. Sometimes the racist manager gets away with it. Sometimes the evidence disappears. Sometimes the employee stays quiet because they're afraid. Sometimes the business protects its own, and the truth gets buried. But sometimes, just sometimes, the camera is rolling. Sometimes the new employee has a conscience. Sometimes the owner does the right thing. Sometimes justice actually happens. This was one of those times. 15 seconds of footage. One instruction. One decision to report it. And everything changed.